Yeah, so you can't put it back. You've seen YouTube videos. I've shown them to you. Like you see the guy going very carefully. He's like, and right, and the shit goes. He's like, fuck, and he just spent like $2,000 on that shit. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tequila Jimmy and the Gringa Show.
Hi, guys!
Where we discuss everything and anything pop culture. Today, we're going to be exploring that iconic animation studio, Filmation. It was very popular in the 80s. They brought us hits like He-Man, Fat Albert, Mighty Mouse, Superman, and many others that we're going to talk about.
All the good ones.
All the good stuff. But before we start, we are going to pour ourselves a little drink. Maybe take a trip down to the cartoon ferry and enjoy the show. So we're going to start with the man who founded Filmation and the guy behind all of our favorite cartoons, really, Mr. Lou Scheimer.
Lou Scheimer. Scheimer. I'm going to get that name wrong a couple times, so forgive me. Lou Scheimer. Anyways, we all know him as... I don't know if you ever remember his little signature. He did He-Man. I recognize him from all the cartoons.
Yeah, his signature was always in the beginning or the end of the cartoons. It's very prominent.
Yeah, and it was like a signature.
Yes,
too.
It's really cool.
Yeah, so he started out as like a background illustrator for
animation,
and Hanna-Barbera.
He worked for Hanna-Barbera. Yeah, he worked small jobs to begin with. Mm-hmm. He was from, I believe, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, and then he went to California.
Yeah, and he basically took a job paying way less money than he was worth just so he could move to California and begin working in animation in general, and that's how he got his foot in the door.
Yes. So then there was 3 people who founded Filmation Studios, and it was Lou Scheimer, and it was Hal Sutherland, which was a gentleman he met about 1957 while he was working on the Bozo and Popeye cartoons for Larry Harmon Pictures, I believe that the studio is called.
Yeah.
But they met there. And, God, that was so long ago. That was 1957.
Yeah, long time ago.
That was very long ago. It just dawned on me. Gosh, 1950. So remember all the old classic cartoons. I like all the old classic cartoons.
Yeah. I mostly know Filmation, of course, from the 80s. When I was growing up, Filmation was just very prominent logo. You see it going across the screen, different colors. And, of course, the most popular thing they ever did was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Yes.
Which you can see behind me. I have an entire line here for when we talk about toys in a little while, which will be soon. But yeah, that was their big one. It was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, as we all know.
Yes.
But they also had like other shows that I watched a lot as a kid, like Brave Star.
Oh, yeah.
Who was like a space cowboy.
Yeah, and She-Ra. That was a good one.
They were also responsible for some of your favorite cartoons, the Archies and the comics. Remember?
Oh, yeah. So there was 3 of them. There was another, Norm Prescott was another one, which they met. And so there was 3 gentlemen who started out with the animation. And a guy from D.C. came in and tried to, they approached him to do the New Adventures of Superman. And it was only 3 of them. And I think you know the story behind this, which is awesome.
It's a pretty funny story.
It's great.
DC Comics contacted Lou Scheimer. At the time, it was just him, Hal Sutherland, and Norm Prescott, right? There was just them 3, and they had no other employees or anything to help with animation. So they happened to get a call from DC who wanted to make a Superman cartoon. And Lou Scheimer was kind of making them think that he had this big animation studio, but he really only had like him and the 2 other guys. So long story short, the DC guy told Lou Scheimer, he's like, hey, I want to come and see your studio to see if you guys are manned up to do this Superman job because we need it in 36 weeks or something like that. It was some kind of deadline. And so what Lou Scheimer did was really cool. He actually he actually asked friends. I don't think he paid them. A bunch of friends and actors and comedians to come and fill in and act like they were
pretend
they were
like
animators
they were
and like working on animations and stuff. So when the DC guy came,
and wasn't there was a famous actor who was in one of
Yeah.
them, and I can't remember their name, but it was just funny when I was looking through the
he
names.
He knew some famous. I forgot what his name is, but I'm sure you guys can find out. But long story short, he had a bunch of people pretend to work in the animation studio
when it was just
when
three
the
of
DC
them.
guy showed up. So when the DC guy left, he's like, "Hey, they're not a huge studio, but they run a tight ship. You know, like they're really structured and organized." So of course
Yes.
they called Lou Scheimer and they're like, "Hey, are you sure you guys can pull the Superman project off in 36 weeks?" And Lou Scheimer's like, "Yes." And they offered him some kind of money. It was not that much money for a project of that size, but it was their first project. You know, when they were starting Filmation. Actually, well, Filmation's an old company. When I say starting Filmation, is the next generation of Filmation.
Which they got their their name because they were actually working on films, and what was it? They were developing films and working on animation.
So they're like,
Filmation? Why don't we just come up with the name Filmation? So they started out with the New Adventures of Superman, which everybody knew, and Archie Comics, which we were talking about. They have about 10 different episodes or 10 different Archie comic cartoons that came out of Filmation Studios along with Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah.
Which you remember
that was pretty popular, yeah.
That was very popular,
Yeah.
but I was always an Archie comic book fan, so I always caught the Archies.
Yeah. Prior to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, they had a huge hit with Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids.
Yes,
Remember
Fat
that?
Albert and the Cosby Kids.
Yeah, it was a huge show. Bill Cosby was actually in the show, like doing the live segment.
Correct.
And Filmation, that was a really big show for them. After they landed Superman, they were able to get on their feet.
Yes.
They were respected as an animation company, and that's when they started being able to do more projects.
Yeah, and Superman was about 1966 when they first got it.
So it was a
and
while,
then and then
It took them a long time.
It did, and then they did a bunch of all these DC comics, like the Teen Titans and Aquaman and the Green Lantern and
They
Justice
did a lot
League.
of odd cartoons. They even made one called Gilligan's Planet.
Which
was Gilligan's Island in space. Like instead of being stranded on an island, they somehow wound up in space, and that's what the cartoon was about.
Correct.
And I think I actually have seen 1 or 2 episodes of that. I don't know where, maybe on YouTube. I don't know.
Probably.
But I have seen that.
And then Archie's was in 1968. So after those 2 shows, then that's when they just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And they were able to do a whole bunch of other cartoons. And there was one that just lasted about a year or season, whatever you want to call it. And it was Star Trek.
Yeah.
The animated series.
Which was actually pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It had great production. One thing Filmation was known for was reusing a lot of stock footage.
Yes.
And they did this with He-Man and the Masters. Every time you saw him transform into He-Man and hold the sword up by the power of Grayskull, that was only shot and produced once, and it was used in every single He-Man episode. So they were known for stock footage. So with Star Trek, you could really see that.
Yes, they would hire they had a bunch of animators that would just sit there and do kind of like B-roll.
Yeah, exactly.
B-roll for the cartoons, where it was like a couple of the, you'd have a couple of the bad guys like all walking, marching, and all they would do is just change the scenery in the background, but it would always be the same.
Yeah, they would just do a new background.
Just
and
a new
same
background.
Animation. Every time He-Man would come out with the sword and just do stuff like this, you would see that if you watch every single episodes of the cartoons, it's the same animation.
Fight scenes were a lot of stock footage.
Redone. But as kids, we didn't care.
I never noticed.
And one thing about Filmation too, at least in the 80s, and I think even prior to this, they really made it a point to like teach kids a lesson or some kind of value.
Yes, and
at the end of the
every
cartoon.
single He-Man cartoon, they did have a lesson to be learned at the end.
Pretty much all their cartoons had some kind of valuable message in it, and that was really important to Lou Scheimer when he was making cartoons. He said that it had to be something that had value for kids.
He did the Bible cartoons back in the day.
Really?
When the Bible cartoons were, he did them as animals. Where he would, because he wanted to find an audience that would actually enjoy it, where children would enjoy it. So he took the animals, a couple of the animals from Noah's Ark, and kind of followed their lives, you know, and had all the events in the Bible happen, but from the animal's point of view. Because, you know, it was just important to him to tell the
pretty cool.
story.
It sounds cool.
It was really cool. And I remember seeing a couple of those in reruns, you know, those cartoons, those animals. But that's a great way to have children, you know, get interested in the Bible stories.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Another cartoon I really loved was Black Star.
Black Star, that was a good one.
And it was a fun cartoon. And one of the cool things about Black Star was the action figures. They had this flint that in the back. It was kind of like a lighter, and it would cause a spark, causing his chest to light up.
Yes.
Okay. So it was so much fun because all of them had that. So it was like as a kid, you'd get the figure and
and inside of it, you would just see the spark
light up on the chest. So the toys for Black Star were really cool. And one thing about Filmation too, that I know a lot of people know this already, but with their biggest hit, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, it was actually a toy line before it was a cartoon. Like Mattel had the toy line designed. They didn't really have the storylines and everything. That all came later. But the way that they sold the figures, I remember, had a lot to do with the fact that they were going to sell them with comics. Which
I was going to say comic books.
They did. They did come with comics, like mini comics.
And they were very great comics with a lot of like action, a lot of fight scenes.
They were and beautifully illustrated.
Yes.
But what happened is when they went to pitch the show, or not, sorry, the toy, the executives were like, what's their story? Like, okay, no, we have a comic book that tells their story, which the He-Man story. But they were like, what if a 2-year-old gets this toy? He can't read a damn thing.
He can't read.
So this is useless.
Yes. Like
and
most,
So the guy made it up on the spot. Remember? He's like, well, what about a cartoon? We have a cartoon. He's like, you have a cartoon? He's like, yeah. They had nothing.
Nothing. But that's how they sold it. That's how they sold it.
That's how they sold
the toys.
The whole thing. And Filmation wound up picking up He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which wound up being an amazing cartoon and a huge part of my childhood. I see I have Skeletor tattooed right here, and I have He-Man and Battle Cat right here. So they're a huge part of. I have He-Man is just here for me.
Oh yeah.
And as you can see, I have a lot of Filmation stuff behind me. And we'll talk about that right now. Let's just do toy time while we're at it.
Yes, toy time.
Why not? Let's do some toy time. So let's check out some of these toys I got.
Well, first we want to say these are actually toys that all the toys that we had as kids. They didn't like. Who was it? Man of Arms. Man of Arms.
Yeah.
He didn't really look like the cartoon character because he didn't have the mustache.
So these
are all based off the actual cartoon.
Right. These are masters. So I have the original toys. I have the entire collection. I don't have Eternia, but I have everything else. But
the Castle Grayskull.
I chose to show you guys these toys today because they are based on the cartoon. So this is a line that recently came out, and it's from the Masters of the Universe Origins line. And as you can see, it says cartoon collection right here. Cartoon collection. And all of these figures are sculpted the way they looked in the Filmation cartoon, which is awesome because I've always wanted to own figures that look like the cartoons. So this He-Man right here, as you can see, he's a very, very close sculpt as to what the cartoon looked like. And one of the really cool ones,
Tila is my favorite because I love her. She has like the actual outfit.
Yes, she looks great.
I mean, well, yeah, it's done after the cartoon, but I've always loved how Tila looked in the cartoon.
Great. And this is my favorite, I think, of the ones that came out, other than Trapjaw, which I'm going to show you for sure. All of them are cool. I can't. But, this guy, Man-at-Arms, if you guys were fans of the original figures.
Yes.
The original Man-at-Arms figure looked nothing like the cartoon. He didn't even have the mustache. His face was squashed in like somebody hit him in the fucking head with something. It was like his face looked all fucked up, But anyway, this looks like the Man-at-Arms from the cartoon.
This looks exactly like the Man of Arms.
I picked all of these up at once at a con.
It was kind of disappointing that, the Man of Arms that you played with didn't look like the one on TV.
Yeah.
So finally they got it right.
Yeah. Hand me Trapjaw right there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, here we go.
He's so colorful. I love Trapjaw.
So
this is just beautiful.
Look how cool
I always liked him on the cartoon. That was the one thing I did love about the He-Man cartoons.
Trapjaw is just a beautiful figure. Look at him. He's all neon. He looks like he's straight out of the 80s.
Yeah. So the one thing I love about these, so the colorful, the cartoons, and they actually got it right for the toys, but the cartoons were so colorful.
Beautifully illustrated. That's one thing.
That
Yeah,
was my
it's very vibrant.
favorite thing about watching the He-Man cartoons is just the color palette.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely. So yeah, we also have Skeletor here. Why don't we show Skeletor, of course? You hey-fool. Hey-fool.
Oh, I love Skeletor. Now,
Yeah.
I always have loved Skeletor. I always root for the bad guy. I don't know why.
He lives on my arm. Right there.
Yes. Like the other one, there's G.I. Joe and there's Cobra. I'm a Cobra fan. He's a Cobra fan.
There's Cobra right there.
I love,
We were
the bad.
definitely going to cover G.I. Joe.
Yes. So I've always been a fan of Skeletor more than He-Man.
Beastman, I just
It is
love
what it is.
Beastman. I used to love playing with the original
Beastman's
Beastman figure as a kid. And he looks pretty awesome. Check that out. I mean, he looks
I just
really
love
cool.
these colors. The
Really
colors
cool.
are just amazing on these.
Yeah, these are really nice. I am not one to I don't have many of the Origins Masters of the Universe figures. I'm all about the original figures. But when I saw these, immediately I was like, I need to get these because my entire life I've wanted figures that resembled the cartoons.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy they did it.
They finally did it, which isn't that long ago either that they finally did it. It took them a while.
And speaking of toys, we have a little odd segment today where the Gringa is going to show you some of her Archie comics because she's really big into Archie comics. And since Filmation produced the Archie cartoons, she wants to show you some of her Archie comics.
I
Don't
know.
you, Gringa?
I was like, when am I ever going to be able to talk about Archie?
Never. And I know you love it.
never.
She's a diehard Archie fan.
I am. That's
Anytime we go anywhere, she's always looking for Archies.
always going because we go to these vintage toys. We always go to vintage toy stores because he's looking for things, mostly just new collections because he has everything, like every He-Man.
Yeah, no, I'm still looking for some vintage stuff, but
Yeah, like there's one He-Man toy, the playset that
Eternia?
Eternia.
yeah, I'm never getting it.
This, if you remember as a kid, I don't know if anybody remembers playing with Eternia or has a friend who plays with Eternia. They always remember it getting broken.
Oh yeah, it broke super easy. It's super
so
brittle.
easily. If you guys remember, and we'll put a picture up, of course.
Yeah.
So you see in this picture how the track around it was so flimsy.
It was brittle in the 80s, and the ones that survive nowadays,
Yes.
most people won't even assemble it because it breaks so easy that it breaks during assembly. Yeah, so you can't put it back. You've seen YouTube videos. I've shown them to you. Like you see the guy going very carefully. He's like, and right, and the shit goes. He's like, fuck, and he just spent like $2,000 on that shit, So.
And he's like, I'm unboxing Eternia.
Yeah,
I'm
he's like,
unboxing,
and all careful with gloves on and all this shit. And that shit snapped on him and turned into fucking dust. So
I would be so
dude, and it's expensive. Eternia is an expensive playset.
Oh my gosh.
I never owned it as a kid.
Yeah.
Never owned it
And
as a
it's
kid.
so expensive because it breaks. Everybody has a broken toy. That's why it's so expensive because it's very, 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 very rare to find a complete mint Eternia.
Oh, they're rare and expensive. You are gonna have to auction your kidney to get that shit. It's pretty expensive, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh. There is another thing I do want to say, the Castle Grayskull.
Well, aren't you going to show your freaking Archie books?
I will, but I can't stop talking about your toys.
Show the Archie books because this is toy time. We're going to continue. Come
Okay, there is. I love toy time.
on. Okay, show the Archie books.
Oh my God, talk about impatience. Anyway,
I want to see the Archie books.
Okay, no. So, the story goes because we always go and try and find his toys. And so, yeah, there was this one like bookshelf filled with Archie comics, and I was going through them and I was like, oh my God, I read this one. Oh my God, I read this one. Oh my God, I read this one. And so we went through and I asked the guy how much they were.
I remember that.
Remember?
Yeah, you couldn't believe it.
And he goes, I'm selling them for the cover price. that never happens.
Everywhere else you see these books, they're sold for they're marked up ridiculous.
Like $7. I mean, it's not very expensive, but it's expensive.
See them all the time.
All
Even
the time.
at the flea market, they're raping for it.
They totally, they totally, they want so much for it. And when the guy said he wants the cover price, I was like, oh my God, it's $1.25.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
We went right back.
That day, I think you spent a fortune on
I just like, no, I didn't even buy. I was like, I spent $40 or something.
Yeah, but you came out of there with a box.
Like, I was just like, I was like, really? A cover price?
Wow.
So I said, okay, you go and browse or whatever you want to do. I'll be here. And I literally was going through each one and I came out and I'm like, yeah, so these are like just a couple because I have so many.
Yeah,
I have
has a lot.
so many.
Anyway, I wanted you to get your chance to show them.
Yeah, so these are part of my Archie comics, and I love it. And they had Little Archie, and I don't remember if you remember the cartoon Little Archie.
I didn't read much of that. I'll be honest.
Yeah, but they also had the cartoon, which is why I grabbed
didn't watch
this.
the cartoons either.
Yeah, the cartoons were great.
I watched Richie Rich. That's as close as I got.
See, and as you can see, I don't know. I always tell him like I try to get my hair as black as Ronnie's. As Veronica Lodge's, and I just, she's got the greatest, so black it's blue hair. So that was my time. I'm never going to be able to show off.
That was it.
I was never
this is it. It's your moment.
This is my
as
moment.
big as you're going to get. So enjoy it.
I love it. Yeah. So I get to read these again. Oh, I love my Archies.
That's awesome.
Anyway, and I was just so happy that Filmation, actually did a whole bunch of Archie cartoons and we got to see them Saturday morning. That was the biggest thing.
Filmation,
they dominated
in the 80s. They made some of the best cartoons, and with
like I said, Mighty Mouse, The Adventures of Mighty Mouse.
Here I come to save the day.
I love that. That's so good.
It means that Mighty Mouse is on the way.
Oh my God. See, we are totally, totally cartoons. I love cartoons. That's what I like to watch.
I watch cartoons every day before I go to bed.
That's what I was going to say. I have to watch cartoons. That's kind of like how I wind down for the night. Mm-hmm. It's like no more telephone, no more scrolling, now it's cartoon time.
Absolutely.
I don't want to watch anything else. I don't want to watch anything heavy. I don't want to watch a drama. I don't want to watch a comedy. I don't want to watch anything. I want to watch Tom and Jerry. I want to watch, which Filmation did, the Tom and Jerry comedy show, which
they sure did.
And all of these, I'm not even kidding you, all of these cartoons, you can either find them on YouTube or Tubi.
Yeah.
Which we
Tubi
are
has a lot
always on Tubi.
But we got to definitely mention one cartoon I watched like hell, and I even had the toys.
Yes.
It was Ghostbusters. They did Filmation. It's known as Filmation's Ghostbusters because it was based not on the Ghostbusters that we know, like from the 80s movie, but it was based on an old TV show where it was these two guys and a monkey, an ape, some kind of gorilla that went out and hunted ghosts. Mm-hmm. And I watched the hell out of that show, and it had such a great theme song. It was like, "Let's go Ghostbusters." You remember that?
Let's go.
Let's go.
See, this
really
is what
cool,
I'm saying.
really cool theme song.
Yes.
And another thing about Filmation is they used a lot of the same voice actors, and
this is actually really great.
One cool thing, is his daughter, Erica Scheimer, was the voice of a bunch of the females on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Like he let his family voice over cartoons, and
because they were free,
and she did free. And not only that, she really did a great job, and I would have never known, that it was somebody who wasn't like trained in voice acting. But he had Alan Oppenheimer.
Yes.
Who we've heard in our other podcast episodes was, Falkor, Gamork from the Neverending Story podcast. If you haven't seen it, why not? Anyway, Alan Oppenheimer, he did the voice of Skeletor.
Yes.
Which he's back here somewhere. He was also Man-at-Arms.
Yes.
Okay, this guy's super talented when he changes his voice. But why am I mentioning Alan Oppenheimer? He was actually also the voice of Prime Evil in the Filmation Ghostbusters, which is like the equivalent of Skeletor. He was like the main bad guy in Filmation's Ghostbusters. And it's a whole different voice. Like if you listen to it, you can kind of hear it, the Skeletor in him. But
But that's if you're listening.
If you're listening for it, if you're just
Yeah.
watching it, like as a kid, I didn't even know
I
it was the
didn't
same
know.
guy. I found out, later, way later.
Like I said, I didn't know Alan Oppenheimer did all three different voices in Neverending Story and was the same person as Skeletor.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And Filmation Ghostbusters was always on after school when I got home from like elementary or junior high. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
I remember getting home and I'd just be like, fuck, I'm tired. I'm from school.
Yeah.
And I just sat on the couch for the first half hour that I was home, and that's what was on. So
Yes.
I always watched the Filmation Ghostbusters, and I always loved it. It was a great
Yes.
cartoon. I still own it to this day, and I still watch it. I love it.
It just I love just all this all the cartoons just brings back so many memories
Right.
because it just, and I think that's why we watch it now today.
Yeah.
Because I love nostalgia. I love feeling like
But
a
we
kid.
can't finish talking about this era without mentioning He-Man's twin sister.
Oh my goodness!
I am
by the
Adora.
power of I love
He-Man's twin sister.
I love She-Ra.
Yes, She-Ra was huge. And when She-Ra came out, She-Ra was introduced with a movie called The Secret of the Sword, which is such an amazing animated film, at least for me. I don't know, maybe it sucks. I don't know, but for me, it's
power of
by the power of love. It's so,
Yeah, I'm singing.
but when the Secret of the Sword came out, it was like
Secret of the
He-Man in the movie theater. So of course, every diehard He-Man fan like me, every kid, flocked to the theater to see it. And
I love that movie.
I
never
loved it
saw
so much
as
I
a-
could tell you everything I did the freaking day I saw it,
You
because
can't.
it stamped itself in my freaking like existence. Like I remember my mom gathered a bunch of people, like all my friends from junior high, and we are or elementary, probably no elementary because it was elementary school.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of friends, and we all went and saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And all came out like, wow, what an amazing, because it was really great. That's when you see
It's
Hordak.
such a great movie.
It's just such a great movie. And then my mom took us all to Pizza Hut.
I
and
love
brought
that.
us like pan pizzas, and we played at the arcade and the little
Yeah.
machines and shit. So I just remember like the memories are so vivid for me because
It was so awesome.
such a great movie.
Because it was so awesome. When things are amazing as a kid,
Yeah,
you'll remember it now.
I loved it. And I also remembered right around the same time The Secret of the Sword came out,
Yeah.
Burger King had those really sweet plastic cups that had like the comic book illustrations of He-Man and the Masters.
Oh.
You know the ones I'm talking. I have a
Yeah.
bunch of them.
We'll put a picture. We'll try
I'll
and
show it to
find.
you
We'll
when
put a
you're-
picture here.
But those cups, I have
Yes.
a bunch of them, and on my desk I actually keep pens in one of them.
yes, you do.
Those bring back tons of great memories too, because it was all right around when The Secret of the Sword came out.
Yes.
Great movie, and I still watch it to this day.
I love going to when we go to all the toy conventions. We go to the Joe Fest in Atlanta, which is a great GI Joe convention, but they all have He-Man toys and She-Ra toys. And it's so awesome for me to look at because I had everything. I had Swiftwind,
Yeah.
her
Swiftwind.
horse. I had She-Ra, and it just and now actually he has Swiftwind and She-Ra. Like he
I have them in my living room.
has
on
them in his
display.
living room, and it's just so amazing.
My house looks like a museum.
I just love all the old toys. Remember, and the Crystal Castle.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Crystal Castle. Yeah,
It was just
Loved
beautiful. It was
It was like a pink version of Castle Grayskull. the way
Yeah,
opened
it
up.
was. It was pink, and it was like a cloud.
Very cool.
It's just so.
I actually don't
inside.
have that. I don't have Crystal Castle.
No, you don't.
I need
I
that.
know. I if I do remember, I had it. And if I didn't had it, one of my friends had it, but I know I used to play with it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to have She-Ra. But it's like I could still smell it. I'm like I could still smell
Yeah.
the Crystal Castle.
Yeah, I can still smell Stinkor from the the figure.
Yes, they said
It smelled
when
like patchouli.
when they made Stinkor, they said like it smelled up the factory or something. I think I saw.
I
it
think
in one
I
of the-
always thought he smelled good. I never
Yeah,
thought
you
he
said it
bad.
smelled like patchouli.
I smell like patchouli. Yeah, it smelled like the patchouli oil or something. I
It's
never
so
thought
funny.
he smelled that bad. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be Stinkor. I'm like, smells pretty good to me. He was a cool figure. He was just a repainted merman.
Yes.
The Mattel 1980s Masters of the Universe figures were probably the most produced figures of his. I don't know any other figures have been produced in more numbers, like especially the early line. So
Yeah.
that's why you see like bits and pieces of them at conventions. You know, you'll see like a torso and an arm
Oh yeah.
from some. They're just super mass produced. And the weapons also, the little weapons that came with them were also super mass produced, and those were probably buried, you know, because a lot of those are harder to get now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I always say, it's so hard and it's our all the toys that we had growing up now to get them now are very rare.
Yeah, no, and,
To get them
and a lot of people just
complete
tax too. You know?
are rare.
So it's all a fucking money game. But
Yeah.
anyway, I want to mention that Filmation also released a Christmas special with He-Man and She-Ra. Remember the He-Man
Yes.
Christmas special?
They did a lot of
Where He-Man was
specials.
dressed up as Santa Claus, ironically enough. It's like, what the fuck is this? And he had a belly and everything. I'm like, He-Man with a freaking Santa Claus outfit on.
Yes. Well, in the movie, in the power, the sword, whatever,
Secret of the Sword.
the secret of the sword, Skeletor is kind of a good guy.
Yeah. No, in that one, no, that's in the.
Oh no, it's in the Christmas
That's
story.
in the Christmas special.
I get
yeah.
those two
No,
movies
the Secret of the
mixed up.
Sword. The Secret of the Sword is more about the Horde.
You're right. Where Skeletor in the Christmas
Skeletor's in it, yeah,
special helps some human children from Earth, and he's such a nice
Yeah,
guy.
and the cool thing about the Secret of the Sword is that Adora, who is She-Ra, is working
Yeah.
for the Horde, thinking that she's on the good side, and then she finds out like the way the Horde
Yes.
treats people, and that she basically opens her eyes. And He-Man, after he crosses over from Eternia to Etheria,
Yeah.
he shows her like what the Horde does to people, and that's where she discovers her power. He hands her the sword, and that's where She-Ra is born. Is in the
Yes.
Secret of the Sword. Adora becomes She-Ra, and
Yeah.
and then that launched into the entire She-Ra,
The
and
She-Ra.
Princess of Power cartoon.
Yes, because they had to find a way. And they also wanted to, because they did so great with He-Man, that they wanted to try and get a girl base, a girl fan, a girl fan base.
Yeah, girl family.
So they went with She-Ra for that. And it was just such a great, I just remember the cartoon was so awesome. Oh, I just remembered in the Christmas cartoon, which there's a GIF. Well, there's a GIF with Skeletor, which I use all the time, where he says, I don't like to feel good. I like to feel evil.
Yeah.
Do you know what he's like? Oh, I like to, you have to put it here. But I love that
find
GIF so
it.
much. That's from the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special.
Yeah,
It's so great.
Filmation used to get licenses, like we mentioned, they got Tom and Jerry. Mm-hmm. So they would randomly get
DC.
licenses and get the permission or hired to produce like off shows from popular cartoons.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you said, Tom and Jerry was one of them.
Yes.
Tarzan,
Tarzan.
the Lone Ranger.
They had actual block of shows, which was the Tarzan, Lone Ranger, Zorro hour, adventure hour. And they did that. They actually did that with Archie too. They did the Archie Sabrina hour. They would try to put two and two together.
Yeah.
Which they did the Batman Tarzan hour, which
What the fuck
I
is
don't
that?
know how that has anything to do with anything, but they did so many
crazy.
great. But they did Zorro and Lone Ranger and Tarzan.
Yeah. No, and also with Filmation, toward the end, of course, Lou Scheimer, he did everything he could to keep animation in the United States. Ultimately,
Yes.
the demise of Filmation was due to the fact that more and more foreign animators were way cheaper to hire.
Yeah, everybody was outsourcing.
And even today,
there's a lot.
unfortunately, that's how it is.
Yeah, they were outsourcing a lot, and they wanted to keep their studios in California. They wanted to keep the
They wanted to keep the work
American
here in
illustrators.
America. Yeah, and that was ultimately what led to their demise.
Yeah, because they just couldn't afford it
They
anymore.
couldn't afford it anymore because nobody would hire them because
They were so
they
expensive.
were so much more expensive than somebody doing it in China,
overseas,
Japan, or wherever.
Japan.
Japan a lot.
Yeah, Japan got a lot of our.
They took a lot, and the Japanese are amazing animators, as we all know. They left their stamp in pop culture forever. But unfortunately, toward the end, Lou Scheimer did everything he could to save Filmation Studios, but he couldn't save it. And
I think it was like in the 90s.
Everyone was hiring foreign companies because they were all about saving money.
Yeah.
And these foreign companies were actually doing a good job. Let's face it, they were producing good animation, they were producing good quality product. So not only were you paying less money, but you're getting the same or quality, or even sometimes better in some cases.
And cartoons were changing and everything. You got Ren and Stimpy, or a little bit, it was just cartoons were changing.
Yeah, it was, and of course, like anything else, the times change. But what was the year that Filmation closed? Do you remember?
It was in the 90s. I do know that, like 1990.
Yeah. They didn't last much after the 80s closed out. I do know that everyone that worked at Filmation was treated like family.
Yes.
And I know that Lou Scheimer he's since passed away, but before he passed away, he wrote a really cool book, by the way, which I will show you here. I have this book. I own it.
Yes.
I highly recommend you read it. But he also was able to kind of get the entire Filmation crew back together, like in a huge get together. So he invited a bunch of people. To have a get together of the people that worked in Filmation with him back in the day, just to meet up and say, hey, how you doing? And from what I remember reading or seeing somewhere, he did not expect a big turnout. And I think hundreds of people flew from all over the place, all over the U.S.
That's somebody who touches you right here.
To actually go see him, and that's how good he was to his people. He was known for treating people super good.
That's such a wonderful man.
And I've never, ever heard anybody say anything bad about working at Filmation or that they were taken advantage of or anything like that. The complete opposite. You hear that how good he treated everybody and how he made you feel like you were part of the family. And for him to call together like a reunion the way he did for no reason, just because he wanted to see these people again, kind of gives you a look into his character and what the kind of person that Lou Scheimer was.
It's so true.
And this is why it was important for him to have the morale in every cartoon.
Oh yeah, the good moral
values,
story.
Right.
He also did Aesop Fables, the movies Aesop Fables.
Yeah.
The animated series.
I didn't know that, but that's cool.
Yeah. There's one great fun fact that I read in Jimmy's book was pretty amazing. So his dad, remember, his dad lived, I think it was, oh God, I know I'm going to get this wrong, Würzburg or something, Germany.
Oh,
Würzburg,
that crazy story. Yeah, you should definitely tell this story.
This is a great story.
Tell this story.
So his...
I have forgotten about that, but that's definitely where...
I think it's Würzburg,
It doesn't really
Germany.
matter where, but just tell the story.
So he said his dad was just a huge activist, and would just really go around, and he said that there was just this young person, this loudmouth person going around and just talking some junk. And he said that it was just getting, too much and everything. So him and his buddies who were activists, they heard that this guy, this annoying twat waffle was going to be in their city. This rectum, this asshole was going to be in the city. And then they wanted to ruin it for them, basically. So they went there, and his dad went up on stage, and they, him and his buddies and everything, they kind of caused a ruckus. And he goes up on stage, and he punched this twat right in the face. And I want Jimmy to tell you who that twat waffle was.
It was none other than Adolf Hitler. Believe it or not, and this is a true story. You guys can look it up.
Look it up.
This was before he was the Adolf Hitler that the crazy everybody. But he was already beginning his little thing, and this guy didn't like it. Lou Scheimer's dad did not like it.
He did not like it. You're not going to come to my city and talk your shit about women, about the Jews. You're not going to talk this shit here in my town.
Exactly.
So he went there and he
fucking pulverized them.
He punched him out.
Yeah.
And Lou Scheimer says he really doesn't
talk about
go
a hero,
around.
Right?
He
got to punch Adolf Hitler. How many of us would love to do that?
Just to hear that, it's just the greatest thing ever. So, and his dad never really bragged about it or anything, which we were just dying.
I'd tattoo that on me.
I would be like,
I beat up Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, I punched Hitler in the face. So that was one good thing, and which tells you the type of family that Lou Scheimer was raised in.
Yeah,
you know, and you
absolutely.
see how he tried to instill good moral values in kids.
Yeah.
You know, just a great man and grew up in a great family. And
Yeah.
his dad got to fucking punch Hitler. That damn, oh God, that feels good to say.
After Filmation closed its doors, DreamWorks took over their
Yeah.
library. So now the Filmation library, everything they ever did is owned by DreamWorks.
Yeah,
Animation.
in 2013, DreamWorks took it over, but then in 2016,
Universal bought it, right?
Universal bought
Yeah,
DreamWorks.
right. They bought DreamWorks. Yeah,
which
so.
they ended up getting all of Filmation's
And they
catalog.
paid like $3.8 billion for them or something like that.
That's right, 3.8 billion.
Billion, yeah.
Yeah, and that's
For DreamWorks, which
Yeah,
of course
but that's-
DreamWorks became a huge animation company, so they were worth every penny.
and you know all the Filmation that we just talked about today,
And we didn't even mention all. It's impossible to mention everything Filmation did, especially in the early days.
especially in the early days. And they also did things that I didn't even know came out of Filmation Studios, which were kind of like a comic book cartoons, like Nancy. You remember Nancy? I don't know if you remember, because I was a big comic book person, or the little comic book strips in the
newspaper?
newspapers. Yeah.
I know. I was.
And so Nancy was one, and there was another one, but they were Broomhilda.
Broomhilda. I remember Broomhilda.
Yeah, I love
That one I definitely
yes, and I remember you remember the cartoon.
Yeah, of course.
So, and I had no idea. So yeah, I had no idea Filmation did those.
Yeah, I found out a lot about that later, way later than not in my childhood. I had no idea it was them.
Yeah, and I
Doing
just
that
laughed when I was looking at all the titles when we were reading. It was like The Adventures of Gilligan and The Adventures of Batman and The Adventures of Tarzan and The Adventures of the Mighty Mouse. It was always great. It wasn't really not creative, but it was awesome. And I love that they still have all the Filmation cartoons and He-Man and She-Ra readily available for us to watch.
I bought the DVDs years
time.
before streaming was a thing, and I owned them. And I've watched He-Man forever. And before the DVDs were available, I would try to find like little shitty quality versions of episodes on the internet.
He gave me the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas DVD. So every single year that goes, that's in our rotation of Christmas movies, without a doubt. It's probably one of the first ones we watch.
Yes,
It's just so
absolutely.
great. Because I just love, seeing Skeletor as such a softie.
Yeah.
I love him.
It was a great one. Anyway, Filmation, of course, we explained to you, was a huge, 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 huge stamp in our childhood.
It really
just
was.
because of all of the cartoons that they produced during our childhood, and all their cartoons had awesome, not only production value, but meaning and values. And
Yes.
you always kind of took them to heart.
And I know we can't really play the sound of the Filmation,
Ding.
but we can do it with our, with
And I
our
can show
voices.
it to you.
And we
Yeah.
could show it to you, but you know that
Yeah.
when you hear that,
And if you don't know it, just go and put Filmation intro or something on
and it's
YouTube
funny, he had it for his phone ring for a long time.
Oh,
It was
it's
just
great.
so great to hear that.
It was my text message notification.
yes,
That's what
until
was.
it got too loud, and then and then you
Until I
changed
got
it.
tired
But
of
it was so good. I loved hearing that.
Thank you guys
I want to
for
thank you
sticking
guys.
around
Yeah,
this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Filmation animation definitely deserves a mention.
It
And they
does.
deserve to be alive in today's world and mentioned, because they were a huge part of animation in the 80s and before.
Yeah, and all of our podcast episodes are things that actually mean something to us
Absolutely.
personally.
Absolutely.
You know-
and I know there's other people out there just like us that feel the same way. And this is
Yes.
for you.
That's exactly it. We're trying to look. We're just trying to let everybody, or who just would love the nostalgia feeling, like, oh my God, I remember Filmation, and just
Of
click
course.
on there. But these are things that we love talking about every day. These are just things we talk about when we're together.
And more than anything, Lou Scheimer deserves all the credit in the world, and he deserves to be remembered. because he
Yes.
was just an amazing person from what everyone says.
And the story about his father punching out Hitler needs to go on.
That right
so
there
I hope you guys hear
alone.
that story and retell that story tomorrow.
Yes, and you'll read about that story in the Filmation book that I showed you earlier.
Yes, in the first
That
couple
story
pages.
is in there.
Yes.
Okay. Our next podcast episode will be about the Bones Brigade, the famous Paul Peralta Bones Brigade, the best skateboarders, in my opinion,
in history.
that started everything for skateboarding in the 1980s.
This completely means so much to us, the Bones
Oh my God, the
Brigade and
Bones Brigade is a
skateboarding
staple
in
of my
general.
childhood.
Now,
I was a massive skateboarder punk when I was a little kid.
and I've always loved skateboarding. And I do
Yeah,
have to tell the
and-
story before we leave. The wonderful story how I found out that a Tequila Jimmy was a skateboarder. So
This is funny.
yeah, I woke up and he was watching YouTube, which he always does. Some random things.
I watch a lot of YouTube.
He watches a lot of YouTube. So I look and I'm seeing these, like, I don't know, 16-year-old kids, 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids or something, just young kids playing with their tech deck boards in a sink, like in the kitchen. And I looked at them and I'm half asleep and I'm like, what the hell are you watching? Like there's
They're
some
doing
bizarre,
fingerboards in the sink.
They're doing the fingerboard things in the sink, and they're all getting excited about it too. They're like, "Yeah, man, yeah." And I was like, radical, man. And I'm like, what are you watching? And he's like, the Bones. That's Tony Hawk. I'm like, what? That's Tony Hawk. And he had to be like, how old, hon? How old was he?
Tony Hawk, I don't know. He must have been like 16 or 17. 16.
Yes.
15 or
So to
16.
see him so young, and he was super, super skinny. So yeah, like, I mean, he looked like, I don't even know. But he said, anyway, so I was just like, what are you watching? So that all of a sudden just opened up everything.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'm getting a skateboard and he's showing me on, holding my hands on, the tennis courts, trying to help me. And I've just been obsessed with the Bones Brigade ever since.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I can't wait. I'm talking
With
about it now.
skateboarding in general, you love skateboarding now.
I love skateboarding.
Yeah,
And
it's an amazing sport.
everybody knows Tony Hawk, but I just want to say before we even get into the podcast that Rodney Mullen is my favorite, and I can't wait to talk about
Rodney
him.
Mullen is the godfather,
In our
and
next-
we will talk about him.
Yes.
But until then, you guys please
Thank
stay
you
tuned.
guys so much. Thank
you so much for listening, sticking around. Spotify, YouTube,
Yes.
like,
Amazon.
subscribe,
Amazon
Music.
Music. Can't even talk anymore.
and we love you guys long time.
Thank you.